Political and international affairs analyst Calvin Dark is in Washington. Calvin, thank you for joining us today. Mexicans are now reconsidering seeking asylum in the U.S. despite being targets of the most violent gangs in the country, MS-13 being one of them. This is what the Trump administration wants, to keep migrants out and to keep discouraging them from coming to the U.S. But who becomes responsible for the many lives under threat still to these gangs?
Yes, well, I think that Trump wants to be seen as helping the Central American countries deal with the violence, the gang activity, and to some extent the poverty. The problem with a lot of his policies are that many Americans don't agree with the motivations behind it. During the campaign, and even as president, even as recently as this morning, the president paints all immigrants from Central America and Mexico as rapists, murderers, gang members. And so even in trying to help those Central American countries, it has a xenophobic, racist tone that makes a lot of Americans like myself uncomfortable.
Yeah. And the president, of course, has been pushing the blame on Democrats, saying they need to fix the laws. What are the Democrats asking, and what are the Republicans really working on? What are the highlights of what we could expect, from a bill that they should be coming up with by the end of the week, hopefully?
I think this whole situation can be summed up like this. President Trump sets a house on fire and then blames everyone else for why they're not putting it out, and then says, I guess I'll have to put it out. It's an insane and cruel circle that he created. Just within the last few minutes, he said that he's going to sign an executive order today to address this specific issue. And I'm glad, because that will at least help end the migrant crisis. But it doesn't make any sense. Why does he need to issue himself an executive order for a decision he alone made? So when it comes to the Democrats and what they want in Congress, there's, of course, the DACA issue. There's border security and his infamous wall that Mexico is supposed to pay for, as well as more immigration judges. But the Democrats want to make sure that people know they won't allow the president to use the migrant children situation as leverage to get his wall.
It is interesting, Calvin, the U.S., a champion for human rights, is violating rights within its own borders. And interesting enough, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, announced the U.S. is pulling out of the UN Human Rights Council. So where does that leave the U.S. now?
Well, first on that decision, that has been in the works for a few months, and it was primarily because of the U.S. Trump administration's belief of the anti-Israel bias in the council. But the public decision was definitely influenced by the recent critique from the UN Human Rights Chief about the migrant situation. I think the biggest setback for the United States is this really takes away a lot of our credibility and moral high ground to stand up for and promote human rights around the world. There are so many abusers of human rights, some who are heads of state, who now know that we're not best positioned to speak out for those that don't have a voice and who are being persecuted.
Well, Calvin, thanks a lot for clearing things up for us, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.